What's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Lombardi Time Brews Live, where I'm your host, John Delray. Today, we're going to be updating you on the second public practice of OTAs, as well as what Matt LaFleur had to say about said practices, as well as some other bits of news that have come out over the last couple of days. But to help take you through all of the details and all the headlines, here's partner in pod, partner in life, Claudia. So, thank you for joining us on this Wednesday. As we give just a couple minutes for people to get on in here, I do have some updates for you. Let's start off with what we know to be the injury report. Now, granted, it's not a real report. It's just what beat reporters who are at the public OTA have noticed, as well as what Matt LaFleur has acknowledged in the press conference that happened today. And let's start off with last year's first-round pick, Lucas Van Ness, who did not practice today. He spent some time on the bike, from what I understand, did some light workout stuff, but he did not practice at all because he has a broken thumb. But Matt LaFleur said it's just the tip. Whatever that means. And I know that quote is going to be so wonderfully taken out of context. I can't wait. But nonetheless, Matt LaFleur did acknowledge LVN does have some kind of broken thumb. He's going to be out for a little bit, but there's no long-term concern. Other than that, either out today or with the rehab group was Tyler Davis, Tucker Kraft, Zach Tom, Alex Magoo, and Keaton Oladapo. None surprising there whatsoever. Josh Jacobs, their new star running back, he should be in team drills next week with his hamstring injury. He actually did some individual work today, did some position work, just didn't do team stuff. LaFleur said that can be expected next week. And then just straight up gone today happened to be Elton Jenkins, Preston Smith, and Rashawn Gary. When asked about why were those three not present today, LaFleur said, yeah, they're all pissed at me. Obviously a joke, which, again, LaFleur dropping out of context, just things all over today. But the truth is, he said that he knew that those guys were going to be gone. Must have been some kind of conflict, either in their personal lives or just a planned absence for them. Regardless, those three weren't there. But there today was the guy who missed the first public practice, cornerback Robert Rochelle. He was actually in attendance today, which means the entire 90-man roster has been to OTAs, the voluntary portion, for at least a little bit now that Rochelle is there. Doing some digging onto Rochelle, trying to figure out why he wasn't there. He did post an Instagram story not too long ago with what looked to be a picture of a funeral. So obviously, understandably, that's where he must have been tending to during last week's open OTA practice. So hello to Packers Kingdom. Hello, hope you're having a great day. So we're going to keep going through the OTA updates here. If you got questions or anything, just drop them in. We'll get to that in just a little bit. If you haven't seen the news yet, there is kind of a brewing proposal out there from the NFLPA side of things that the players would like to go back to what they experienced during the COVID year. The fact that there wouldn't be OTAs and these voluntary, mandatory minicamp type things. Instead, just give a longer training camp with kind of a ramp up that leads up to what is the traditional training camp. So we wouldn't necessarily see like the OTAs the back end of May, early June, like we have right now. Instead, maybe training camp would go through the majority of July, but it would be on a lighter basis. There seems to be something brewing in the NFLPA world about that right now. And the NFL, as it's been leaked to this point, has said to be relatively agreeable to this notion because, of course, they want player safety. I don't know what this does for player safety, but they are saying that, or the leak, I should say, says that the NFL is perhaps amicable, but it may come at the cost of the players getting that 18th game on the schedule. For what it's worth, Matt LaFleur was asked about this. He says that he is not a fan of this idea, as I think a lot of coaches around the league aren't. LaFleur said that his rationale is he remembers the COVID year. That just kind of sucked for everybody because there wasn't as much time to get playbooks to guys. There wasn't as much time to do installs. And now to go install straight into the kind of monotony that is camp, it could make for a very, very long summer for a lot of guys. He also stressed that this may not be the best system for guys like UDFAs or late round draft picks, guys who need more time in buildings, who need more practice, who need more chances to make an impression. This might not bode well for them. So for what it's worth, LaFleur says he's not a fan. And then just other individual players that did get some kind of attention from Matt LaFleur, some kind of comment. Just going to hit these quick here. Quay Walker, in terms of whether he's going to be the communicator wearing the green dot or not, Matt LaFleur said that that's more than likely, that it certainly seems to be trending that way. Frankly, as far as I'm concerned, that makes a lot of sense because generally it is going to be a linebacker, especially in the 4-3 setup. You're going to have a linebacker wear that green dot. And you're probably not going to give it to a rookie in the form of Edgerrin Cooper. And the only other one who has any type of tenure really who's going to see the field a lot is McDuffie. But yet, Quay Walker's probably going to be on the field more than him. So it makes all sense in the world. Plus, I will note, last year, Quay Walker seemed to play better in the weeks that Campbell was out, whether that's green dot related or not. But it is just part of reality. So maybe that's a little something for him. In terms of Andre Dillard, he got a shout out from Matt LaFleur, saying that the size, the athleticism, that he's a perfect scheme fit. So if you're wondering why Andre Dillard to this juncture seems to be playing ahead of Caleb Jones and Luke Tenuta, there might be part of your rationale. Rasheed Walker got a shout out from LaFleur when asked. LaFleur said that she did not throw any type of fit after Jordan Morgan was selected to compete with Rasheed Walker. Instead, he just came in, didn't say a word, got locked in, got to work, and it's exactly what they're looking for. Packers Kingdom saying, I don't know what the NFL coming into. Is that in terms of the offseason scheduling stuff?
So.
Yeah. I mean, for the rationale from the players' side is then they get a longer break, basically, because you got the draft as an event, right? But then they get May and June just kind of to themselves. And then it's almost like just extending the season rather than having this 1 3-week, 4-week blip in the middle where they got to come back to their team town, do a bunch of work, and then fly away for another month and then come back. So the players are just looking at it from that angle. Coaches, I totally get the rationale of not liking this, though. So more to be talked about for sure as we get going there. Jordan Morgan today, an interesting update about him. In one phase thus far of the offseason, he's played predominantly left tackle. In another phase, he played predominantly right tackle. Well, now today, he got to take a lot of snaps at the ones at left guard. Of course, that's in large part due to Elton Jenkins being absent today. But nonetheless, Jordan Morgan getting a look at with the ones at left guard. And then Eric Stokes got another shout out from LaFleur. He was asked specifically hey, we've heard the details about Christian Watson's hamstring. What about Stokes? What's going on with Stokes? And LaFleur basically said, this is his exact quote, as good as I've ever seen him, both mentally and on the field. LaFleur then went on to say, I do want to temper expectations. I don't want to build that up too much. But the reality is Stokes looks fantastic. He looks fully healthy, down in and down out. So there you go. Eric Stokes looking like he may be corner 2. Then we've got Kobe Wooden getting some talk from Matt LaFleur that he played a little bit of defensive end today. I know Andy Herman actually asked him directly about it, asking, was that because of just 2 edges being gone in the form of Rashawn and Preston, or was it because Wooden may actually play a little bit of defensive end or edge rusher in the new system? And LaFleur just went, both. So there you go. And then the update you've all been waiting for, kickers. Anders Carlson today. Anders, that a boy. 6 of 7. His only miss is from 51, where it faded kind of right on him. Podlesny, though, did not have a great day. If you've got any money on the Podlesny portion of the kicking race, it was not a good day for you. He ultimately went 3 of 7. Now, 2 of those 3 makes were his final 2 kicks of the day, but nonetheless 3 of 7. And then Greg Joseph, the 3rd competitor in the race, he did not kick at all. He just got the day off, and I'm not totally sure why, but nonetheless got the day off. But Carlson, very, very strong day for Carlson. When asked about Carlson, LaFleur said that thus far he's doing a nice job. But for all 3 kickers, there's been ups, there's been downs throughout this OTA process. But today was a good day for Anders Carlson. Packers Kingdom saying,
make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe.
That's right. Thank you, Packers Kingdom. And then one last thing for you, while we'll see if some more people come in, maybe get some questions here rolling today or some comments. PFF just posted this article, and I bring this up because PFF's been rolling through this series of top 10 rated quarterbacks per PFF and all these different things. Every team's least appreciated player I saw was one last week. Well, today they put out what for every team is the biggest strength, biggest weakness, X factor, rookie to watch, and then over under. And I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on some of these. They said that the biggest strength in 2023 happened to be the passing game of the Green Bay Packers. Okay, hard to disagree with that. Biggest weakness in 2023, the middle of the defense. Also kind of hard to argue with that. And it went on to explain that those groups ranked 31st and 24th in the NFL last year. The X factor for 2024 happens to be Xavier McKinney. I can absolutely get on board with that. The rookie to watch, Edgerrin Cooper. He very well could be the most impactful rookie, depending on what happens with Morgan. And then over under 9.5 win total, PFF is calling the over. But one very interesting nugget, this perhaps, and if you don't have PFF, that's why I'm kind of diving in here. One very interesting nugget, PFF also put out a projection as to the starting lineup on both sides of the ball, and it's very as you would expect, mostly, except for the offensive line, where PFF projects the Packers' starting offensive line to be left tackle Jordan Morgan, left guard Elton Jenkins, center Zach Tom, right guard Josh Myers, and right tackle Rasheed Walker. They are obviously Rob Domofsky followers to have Zach Tom in there at center. But nonetheless, that is what PFF has projected at this time as the Packers' starting offensive line. So there you have it. That is basically all of the news of OTA's day 2, or I should say open to the public or open to beat reporters day 2. There were some other interesting quotes if you're checking out different things. Jair Alexander had a very interesting quote because he actually spent some time talking to reporters in the locker room today, and he was asked pretty bluntly, like, what has been the experience thus far with the Packers' new defensive staff? And Jair went on to say, like, communication's more open. That first he met Hafley, then he met the rest of the guys, and just overall, it's been easier to communicate. And LaFleur again mentioned Jair and how impactful his presence has been this offseason, how he has really shown up, how outstanding he's been when he's been there. And Jair at his locker today, yeah, there was the typical Jair. Like he came walking up to the podium and the first words out of his mouth were, top cornerback in the league has re-entered the chat. That's just Jair. But then his answer about the difference kind of between Barry and Hafley was very tactful. He was very careful not to just come out and trash on Barry. He just basically said that the communication is more open with Hafley, that there's a very quick mutual respect between he and the new defensive coaches. And it was nice to see a very tactful answer from Jair. Not that he's ever not tactful, but I think you know where I'm getting with this. All right, couple comments here.
We got from Affam, that could take a minute for the O-line to gel.
Yeah, I'm kind of baffled by why PFF thinks it. Like, I guarantee you, if Rob Domofsky never came out and said that quote about the Packers at the Combine saying, like, Zach Tom could be this, or a Hall of Fame center, then this gets no second thoughts whatsoever. And yet PFF is sliding in center Zach Tom. I don't know. I think that is way more likely to occur in 2025 after Josh Myers' contract is up. And AFM, you actually touch on that here with this next comment. Like, we just need to live with Josh Myers at center for one more year, then move on. Yeah, he's entering the final year of his deal. They like how he does the line calls. They call him one of the leaders of the line. So, like, the likelihood, I don't see Myers just being benched. And in terms of switching over to right guard, Stenovich, Butkus have been pretty open about how darn near everyone in the offensive line room is cross-training, except Josh Myers, who's a center. I don't know. It seems like they're just trying to broadcast it, and sites like PFF are just continuing to be like, nuh-uh. Whatever. Gypsy Mike.
I'm more concerned with the O-line. I'm sticking with our defense being in the top 5.
I mean, I love the optimism about the defense. I will say, I like if it kind of points out about the offensive line, the defense is going to take at least a little bit to gel. Like, it is a brand new scheme. They're being asked to do things in a radically different way. Even Packers.com yesterday had an article about Kenny Clark and how Kenny Clark is like attempting to shed weight, that he got down to 305 last year, and now he's trying to get under 300 for this year, which would be the first time that he's under 300 since high school. And then he said that for years he did a lot of offseason training with DeForest Bruckner, Eric Armstead from the 49ers, guys that played under 300 for good portions of their careers. And he just always kind of wondered, like, what's that like to be that nimble? Well, and now Kenny Clark is going to try to find out. And he's hoping that that helps him both with speed and explosion. So like even that kind of thing, like down to guys are kind of changing their bodies to get more with this scheme, means it's going to take a little bit to gel. Offensively, I mean, the O-line, let's just say hypothetically that Jordan Morgan isn't plugged in at one of the tackle spots. Okay, so that means that 4/5 of your starting line is likely to return. Rasheed Walker at left tackle, Elton Jenkins left guard, Josh Myers center, and then Zach Tom right tackle. So what that really leaves open then is right guard. And Jordan Morgan might go there, or maybe it's going to wind up being Sean Ryan, who played like 40% of snaps down the stretch last year to varying percentages week by week. So really, like in terms of offensive line continuity, you're really not changing much. They have the option here to completely throw a nuke on it and mix it completely up. I just don't personally really see them doing that. I'd be more worried about the defense taking a couple weeks to gel than the offensive line.
I'm saying also we run a lot of shotgun read options, so we need to have a steady snapper with the actual snap. Luckily, Jordan seems athletic enough to cover some of that up.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. And I think that that's, like Myers had that difficulty last training camp with his snaps, if you recall. Like there were just multiple botched exchanges. I think by the end of camp, the official number was like 5 botched exchanges from Myers. And then in the season, that wasn't really that big of a problem. Myers' problems are much more in the actual, like when he stands up and tries to block someone department. So you and I are very like thinking in the regard though of like, he's the center. They're going to live through it this year. He's going to start this year, and then we will see. Let's see. Everyone's saying we ain't shopping at Dillard's for this O-line. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting that LaFleur, not that he's going to come out and trash a guy, especially do free agent acquisition, right? But he was very complimentary of the Andre Dillard signing in his press conference today. And I know you were there because I watched the press conferences twice, like once just to watch and then a second time to take notes. The second time they were showing the live chat replay, I saw you in there. I saw your comments. But anyway, I thought it was interesting that he was so complimentary of Dillard, a player who tremendously struggled last year, leading the NFL in sacks from the tackle position. And granted, playing in a very different system, playing for Tennessee. But yet, LaFleur acknowledged that the tools are there. He was a first-round pick for a reason. The athleticism's been there, and LaFleur feels like he's a perfect scheme fit. I'm surprised to this point we haven't heard of Dillard experimenting at guard at all. I have a feeling that's going to come later for sure. Joseph.
Yay, this week is actually me. Last week, John used we when he was solo without me.
You know what, man? All right, look. Okay, because I saw a comment too. Now, look. When I do the pod, it's in my mind that I just say we. I don't know why. It's just always been a thing. It also just feels really weird. Like I'm going to take a look at. It's the collective we. It's not just her. It's all of us experiencing this fandom together. Let's go with that. That's what I'm rolling with today.
Gypsy Mike saying the O-line is the same for the most part, and they have to get better at run blocking. Not saying it's not good, just saying going to a 4-2 with the players we will have to, or with the players we have will dominate.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that last week, right? Where like the run blocking did have its ebbs and flows last year. Like certainly there was a portion of the year, especially when AJ Dillon was the lead back, where it wasn't great. But the one thing that I will throw out, overall, do they got it better at run blocking? Sure. But that stretch from the end of the season through the couple postseason games, that stretch where Aaron Jones was like routinely passing over the century mark, as good as Aaron Jones was those weeks, it wasn't just because of Aaron Jones. It looked for like those few weeks, the offensive line actually put it all together from a run blocking standpoint. It was kind of like this perfect merging of like schematically began to work correctly with the offensive line doing their jobs and Aaron Jones back and healthy and looking like prime level Aaron Jones. It wasn't just Jones being an incredible runner. So that does kind of lend itself to some optimism about the potential run blocking of this group together, certainly. Granted, a lot of that does hinge on what actually happens with right guard, because even though Sean Ryan put together some highlight type blocks while run blocking last year, there were also plays, especially like as he was getting more playing time, that he just kind of missed. So it is a very mixed bag with Sean Ryan as he was playing last year. If he winds up getting the right guard spot, we'll see. I should say too, Royce Newman continues to get some snaps. Like today, I mentioned how Jordan Morgan played some left guard. You know who rotated with Jordan Morgan at left guard? It was Newman. So they haven't forgotten about him. That's all I'm saying. Yep, I was there. Yeah, I saw you. I also saw Joseph in the comments as well.
Just like saying John channeling his better half.
Yeah, that's her. Word selection. All right, so let's see. We'll give it just a minute here, see if anybody sneaks in with any more comments. But I mean, the one thing that I can say too, there's a couple other like OTA highlight videos out there that I saw, and I don't really do highlight things for OTAs. I'll do more of that with training camp and everything, especially as I can record stuff. But you will see, I guarantee it, a highlight of Jordan Love dropping back and then throwing a deep pass. I think it was like, I think one beat reporter called it a 60-yard pass to Romeo Doubs. And it was short. To the point where Doubs, they really had to like slow up his route and then get it. Kind of something we saw from Love occasionally last year. There was also tweets out there. I didn't see any video of this one, but of another throw from Love to Dontavian Wicks that was well short, but Wicks adjusted. So if you're wondering if that thing is still a thing for Jordan Love, it sounds like it is as of right now. But I will caution a couple things here. It is OTAs. We don't know the purpose of what's going on. For all we know, the intention of the drill was the coach saying, hey, Love, throw it a little short here. I want to see how he adjusts. That kind of thing happens all the time. Or was it just a presentation of what has been one of Love's occasionally sporadic weaknesses? Maybe that too. We don't know for sure. But I'm just saying, if you see those clips out there, I guarantee you there's going to be headlines overreacting. There's going to be other people overreacting. Just keep in mind in appropriate context that it's OTAs and we don't know what's going on the field exactly. So just saying, that's all. If I'm saying, that's Love's talk to Trey for sure. Yeah, it is. There's no denying it. It was an issue, and we'll see if it is again.
Joseph saying, I'm buying stock in Ben Sims. He'll get some chances to shine more in the passing game as Kraft recovers. Musgrave and Kraft will likely outstat him, but Sims is faster and caught well in college.
I am with you up until you said Sims is faster. Yeah, certainly Musgrave and Kraft are going to outstat him, right? Like they're going to get significantly more snaps than Ben Sims, no doubt about it. But I do like Sims. Like he did some nice stuff in his chances last year, albeit they were limited. I would not say, though, that Sims is faster, especially than Musgrave. Kraft maybe, but Musgrave, I just know you're going to go look up some stat that's going to prove me wrong. But like, I don't think so, man. All is good. Just had to razz you on the we took it all. Exactly. The LTB collective. We're all in this together, Joseph. See, I'm with you. Dan.
Hey, Dan. John, do you know if it is possible in practice to have a green dot helmet on all of the defensive players? It seems like it might make sense for the other defensive players to understand the calls.
So I don't know about the rules technicalities. Honestly, maybe there is some kind of rule, but I don't, just thinking logically, see why there would be. Like, we're not to the point yet of scrimmaging against another team or anything like that. Like, teams at this juncture, as long as they're not violating the CBA rights of the players in terms of how often they're doing contact or how long practices can last, etc., teams at this point have a fair amount of autonomy. And what they want to do on the field. So I don't know as if there's some technicality about it, but I don't know off the top of my head as to why there would be. The other thing that I will say, though, Dan, is at this juncture, it may not be necessary. See, like today, LaFleur acknowledged that today was the first time that they really did a full speed 2-minute drill. Up to this point, it's been a lot of walking stuff, or when they've done 2-minute drills, they'll stop the clock and still huddle up. We see that occasionally at training camp as well, that if a defensive or offensive side of the ball is looking to work on one particular thing, then they'll full on huddle up every single play and discuss it. So at this point, while they're going slow, while they're focusing on communication and getting things right and walking as opposed to sprinting, I just don't know as if it's necessary because they're all talking together in a huddle before every single play with the coaches. So I don't know as if that would be that beneficial at this juncture. I hope you get what I'm saying.
After saying I'm spoiled though, seeing Mahomes.
I mean, yeah, I get it, but it doesn't change the fact that for Love, like at times that was a deficiency last year. And you can bet Matt LaFleur, Tom Clements, Jordan Love, he's not letting himself off the hook about those throws. It's just something to improve on. His deep ball was inconsistent last year. Of course, before I get mauled for this, it did get better. No doubt about it. But like, we can acknowledge where the deficiencies lie. It doesn't change. He's still good.
I'm also saying Love doesn't have the zip as most elite quarterbacks do. Time will tell if he can manage the game differently and utilize the scene and recognize mismatches.
You know, I will say, at least in terms of the back end of your comment there, utilizing the scheme, recognizing mismatches, Love was, by most metrics, the top quarterback in the NFL last year for the second half of the season on 3rd and 4th down. He also was the top quarterback in the NFL in the back half last year when blitzed. And he was blitzed on nearly 40% of his snaps. So to me, that's indicative of a quarterback who is able to read mismatches, et cetera, et cetera. In terms of the zip, it's kind of baffling. And I talked about this a lot last year. I don't know as if it's a conscious choice, but dating back to college, that was one of Love's strengths. Like he was a gunslinger with one of the strongest arms in the 2020 draft. And that was a loaded quarterback class. So I don't know if that's the kind of like Rodgers-esque-ness of them trying to get Love more accurate by getting more air under the ball. And now in getting more air under the ball, sure, a little bit more touch, but now you've lost some of the zip. We can't know for sure because we don't know exactly what's being said to him, but it is an interesting observation over Love's career arc to see that he went from one of the strong-arm quarterbacks in the draft to now a guy who does occasionally float it or wind up short. So could be a technique thing. We'll have to see.
Just saying, I had to look up stats before posting. It is close enough to be called a tie. Sims 4.58 at his pro day, which is faster than what Luke Musgrave posted at the NFL Combine, running a 4.6.
I know you were going to do that too. But hey, I will say Musgrave topped over 20 miles an hour at the Senior Bowl. I do very much remember that from draft prep for Luke Musgrave. So, all right, you get this one, Joseph.
Dan saying, thanks, John. I just remember a lot of communication problems last year. I was hoping they would fire the communications coordinator.
Yeah. Well, the guy in charge of all of it got fired. And, that is one thing that's being commented on. Now, granted, not communication specifically, but several players have remarked to this point how Hafley is prioritizing clarity in his teaching for the defense, making things streamlined, super simple to understand so that players can get their responsibilities and then try to do them well. It makes a lot of sense. I know you've heard me talk a lot before about one of the reasons that I'm enamored with Hafley to this point is because that man is a teacher, like through and through. And that just harkens to my teaching background and how much I appreciate that. But like you just listen to him standing on the podium and like the dude understands educational processes. And so far from the players talking in the locker room, that is very much evident to them that they feel that things are simpler, that things are easier to grasp. So hopefully that results in better communications, or maybe just the play calls will be simpler to where you don't need as much communication as what we saw needed to be called for last year. So we'll see. If zip is hard to describe, yes, in words it is. I do know what you mean though, like the hum of the ball as it's released off the hands. Like I'm with you, and I don't know. I just, to get to my point earlier about like love, I don't know why totally it seems to have gone over the years. Miserable goat. Soon. We are 100 days from the Packers season opener. So soon is right.
Peter saying, hi, Jon and Claudia. Hi, Peter.
Hi, Peter. Bonjour.
Jacob's latest injury could become concerning sooner than later, thinking about his last 2 seasons and putting it in parallel with the reason why Goody cut Aaron Jones. Agree?
Yes and no. I mean, Jones was a very different type of back. Keep that in mind too, because like Jones was shorter, significantly lighter than Jacobs too, right? And plus Jones had and this is not to knock on Jones, it's just true, but like Jones had a longer kind of record when it came to, granted he's been in the league longer, but of like multiple MCL sprains and just multiple of the same types of injuries. With Jacobs, I mean, to this point, what we know is that it's a hamstring injury of some kind, and LaFleur holds no long-term concern about it. That is scary for Packers fans because of our experience with hamstring injuries, right? 1000%. I get it. I think the important thing that I would say here, and just something to keep in mind, is like not all hamstring injuries become chronic multi-year things like we see with Watson and company. So if they're not concerned at this juncture, Jacobs over the years, I know he's missed games here or there, but like for the most part, he's been relatively durable. And he's also played a lot more snaps than Aaron Jones to get those injuries. Maybe with a reduced snap load with how LaFleur likes to utilize his running backs as opposed to the way Vegas did, maybe that will help keep him fresher as well. I just think that this isn't a thing to be concerned about until we get into camp. Then if it comes up again in camp, yeah, then maybe some wheels start turning for some concern.
Joseph asking, any update on how the UDFA receivers have done lately? Wonder if any chance to beat out Heath or Toure, most likely practice squad candidates, I presume. Yeah,
so I think, well, okay, in terms of Toure realistically right now is like in the wide receiver 7-8 mix. He seems to be, at least the way last year played out, certainly behind Malik Heath and Bo Melton, who would be 5 and 6, right? So like Toure's probably in there with like Grant Dubose for like wide receiver 7 and 8. I did see some complimentary tweets earlier about Julian Hicks, the UDFA out of Albany. I haven't really seen much about Dimitri since the rookie camp when he made a great one-handed catch. But Hicks, I saw some tweets talking about how he's incredibly smooth, about how he might be a guy that once fans see him play, they might fall in love with. The fact that he's a very sturdy route runner, that he could make some waves like Malik Heath did last year. Realistically, what's the most likely path? Yeah, you're right. They're probably practice squad candidates. Like that's the most likely path. But you never know. Look at Heath last year. If Hicks comes out, and I think really the only wide receiver job that's up for grabs probably is wide receiver 6, barring injury. So you never know. We'll see how it shakes out. But Hicks is the one that I see the most about for sure.
If I'm saying Musgrave takes some big hits, I could see him being injury prone. Hopefully not, but he's got a lot of surface area to hit.
Yeah, he does. He a big dude. And you never know, too. I won't be shocked if he gets hurt while attempting to get his footing on some given play as well. Yeah. Hopefully not, though, right? Like, who knows?
I'm also saying wrap Jacobs in bubble wrap this offseason, please.
Right? Priority 1, just get into the year healthy. Yeah, I get that totally.
Just saying too much zip can be a problem, too.
For sure.
Wasn't there a receiver from another team who refused to catch Favre's bullet passes in Pro Bowl practice? and Holmgren implored Favre to tone down the rocket balls.
Yes. You're spot on with that, Joseph. Oh, who was it? There was a Pro Bowl receiver who years ago just wouldn't do it because he was afraid of hurting all his fingers. Partly because look at what happened to Donald Driver's fingers. Like Donald Driver broke like 3 fingers catching passes from Favre. And you're right. Holmgren wanted Favre to calm it down. That was a huge thing for them for years. And then it should be noted too that Favre only began to do it once he started aging a little bit and Holmgren was gone. So but yeah, I mean, you're right. Too much zip can be a bad thing. I mean, think even back to other 90s quarterbacks like Jeff George, who had a cannon and then wasn't that great in the league. There have been tons of strong-armed quarterbacks. Kerry Collins comes to mind too. Strong-armed quarterbacks who were mega strong and then weren't that accurate. So yeah, if you're delivering zip at the sacrifice of accuracy, then it's never going to work. I think your ideal kind of model for the thrower of the football in a lot of ways happens to be Love's predecessor. A guy who had zip and release, could throw it 60 yards or could throw it 65 yards, lofting a moonshot for a Hail Mary. I think maybe Love did learn from him and it's taken away a little bit of the zip. So Love's gotta adjust for sure.
Peter's saying, I think the best way to protect Jacobs is make Marshawn Lloyd play.
Well, he's probably not going to get hurt not playing. Yeah. Lloyd is going to play this year for sure. But I will just continue to say, given the way that the coaches have talked about him, given the fact that Marshawn Lloyd has a lot of learning to do in the pass pro department, I think A.J. Dillon still very much has a role here as well. And we are going to see A.J. Dillon on the field, especially when they need a reliable pass pro back, until really Lloyd kind of makes that a tool in his toolbox. It's probably his biggest weakness on the field thus far.
I'm saying, gotta love the 90s.
It was a time.
This Bill Goat saying Antonio Freeman.
Oh, yeah, Freeman. Yeah, I remember actually meeting Freeman a couple years ago and asking him about it. It was one of the things that I got to ask him about. And he talked about how, especially when it was cold, you could it wasn't just your fingers that hurt anymore then. The pain would just vibrate all the way up. And he got shudders just talking about it years later. He did.
Joseph asking, was it Michael Irvin?
Maybe. I don't know. I'll have to go look it up. I do know what you're referencing though, but it's just not coming to mind. I'm sure someone in the replay will have it in the comments. So, all right, everybody, it is time for us to get on out of here. Thank you for another wonderful Wednesday. Of course, we'll be back next Wednesday doing a live. But until then, look for an episode on Friday. Look for an episode on Monday of some pre-recorded content talking about the Green Bay Packers. Don't really know quite what I'm going to do on Friday yet. We'll see what news develops over the next couple of days, but be sure to check that out. Couple more sneaking in right before the buzzer. Joseph.
Saying, with hopefully Packers playing 20 games, would like to see Ben Sims be used to spell Musgrave and Kraft more often to get all 3 to the Super Bowl healthy.
Yeah, I think Joseph, Ben's going to have a role. He will. And so too, I think will Tyler Davis, assuming all 4 make the roster. So yeah, we'll see balance, I'm sure.
Chad Inc. saying, I'm excited with the possible 2-back sets with Jacobs and Lloyd.
I mean, that would give them a world of versatility, right? For sure. All right, everybody. So thanks for everybody saying thank you. But it is time for us to jump on out of here. Thanks for joining us for another Wednesday. I'll be back on Friday with another update. Until then, go have yourself a great day. And as always, go Pack, go.